happening now on Grid tonight. It's Rolex 24 weekend, but there's other racing happening around the world. Which drivers will get the job done in Saudi Arabia and Monte Carlo? AlphaTauri F1 has a new name. Will Visa Cash App RB forge a stronger identity? A new Formula One venue is coming in the future. Is it the right move to prioritize Madrid over Barcelona? Hello to all our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Kobe Lambert. With me is Joshua Birch, Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance Index, and Edward Hunter from formerly E-Zone. We encourage everyone to comment in the chat, ask questions, and support us through Super Chat. Now here's Josh with our top story this evening.
Thank you, Kobe. Hello, everybody. Now, on Saturday at noon Eastern, we have our pre-race show for the Rolex 24 at Daytona. However, two racing series will be in action before then. The World Rally Championship season opener and the second race weekend for Formula E. Starting with Formula E, we're in Diriyah in Saudi Arabia. It's the first doubleheader of the year. Sam Bird, Nick de Vries and Pascal Wehrlein are tied for the most wins in Diriyah at 2 each. Wehrlein is coming off a strong race in Mexico City after a dominant win. Last year, Wehrlein became the first driver to sweep Diriyah. The photo courtesy there of Formula E. Matt and Ed are with me here to talk about it. So, Matt, starting with you, if Wehrlein can sweep Saudi Arabia again, starting 2024 off with 3 in a row, will it increase his championship odds?
Well, good evening, guys, and hello, everybody. Yes, Wehrlein did the sweep, as you mentioned, Josh, last year at Diriyah, and of course he comes into this weekend as the championship leader after that fairly dominant win, you'd have to say, in Mexico a couple of weeks ago. And as we kind of trail, you guys have on various things that you've done building up to that race, and we did on the show as well, we kind of trailed ahead that Porsche powertrains would be one of the front runners. I don't really expect too much to change. It's only been a couple of weeks, really, as we said, since Mexico. So teams haven't had a lot of time to do too much in terms of anything, really, because a lot of that time has been with the transportation of the freight. So you would think, and we know the randomness that can be Formula E, especially with the different practice and qualifying formats on each day, especially for qualifying for the two races, things can be different. But got to think that Wehrlein, especially, and Porsche going into this weekend will be the favourites.
Yeah, I think you make a good case there, Matt. That certainly Wehrlein's got the momentum behind him at the moment. But I think even if he goes really, really well in these two races in Diriyah, if you think back to, say, Sebastian Buemi in, I think it was season 3, essentially, he had a great run. First half of the season, won a series of races in a row, and then had to miss a couple of races. Had a terrible weekend in Montreal, ended up narrowly losing the championship to Lucas Di Grassi. So I don't think just because you can string 3 wins together in a row, it means that it's all plain sailing from there on in. And we even saw last season, despite winning 2 in a row and finishing second in the first race, Wehrlein, who was leading the championship for quite a while, ended up being overtaken first by Nick Cassidy and then, of course, by Jake Dennis, who ended up stealing the championship under both of their noses, of course. In terms of the competitive order, Porsche, they've certainly still got a very, very efficient and quick car, but we've got to remember Jaguar in the back end of last season made big gains, and those gains have carried through. So I don't think we saw the best of Jaguar in Mexico. There are a couple of reasons. There was a 1-place grid penalty for both drivers in Mexico City of the factory Jaguar team, Nick Cassidy and Mitch Evans, and that limited their progress because overtaking was quite difficult at Hermanos Rodriguez. It should be fairly straightforward comparatively in Diriyah because there are a few more overtaking areas. It's not such high altitude, so the slipstream will be a bit more powerful in terms of not just saving energy, but using it to overtake, of course. So I think we're going to see the likes of Envision, Jaguar, and also DS are in a much stronger position than they were last season as well. So I think the Maserati and the DS Penske cars will be quite strong. And Nissan, they did take a poll with Jake Hughes last year, so we can't rule out the McLarens or the factory Nissans either, because they've got some quality drivers there too. So certainly at the front of the field, I think there are quite a number of drivers that could come out on top here.
There's a few comments coming through in the chat room already. Evening to Astralis' evening team. Good evening to you. Nice to have you along. Formula E-Zone are with us as well. Up the Kobe. Good to hear from you again as well. Everyone's looking at this. Hello to Adam as well. Hi, everybody. Bring on Saturday. Can't wait for the Rolex 24 hours at Daytona. Of Daytona, of course. And Animal says, Buemi will win Formula E this year. Yeah, we've all been saying that as well. Joe Samiego is watching, I believe, in an airport. He's told us beforehand. 3 in a row would be great, but he and the team need to be up front in the second half of the season as well. And we'll be hearing from Joe in the build-up to the Rolex 24 hour in our pre-show on Saturday as well at 12 noon Eastern. We're going to keep reminding you of that. It's our big show as well. The link to that is in the video description as well. That's 9 a.m. Pacific as well for those of you over there on that part of America. Now, past winner Sam Bird has moved over from Jaguar to McLaren. He didn't score any points in Mexico City as he watched his teammate Jake Hughes finish in the points. We already know that Bird's move to Jaguar didn't go exactly as planned, but there's plenty of time for him to rebound with McLaren. As then we see Jose Amigo is in Houston, then Portland. Well, for Bird, he's gone from Mexico to Diriyah. And does he need to win a race this year to silence any of the doubters that, Ed, we've been talking about for well over a season now?
Yeah, I mean, I think Sam Bird, he's always been a little bit of a where he does amazingly well or he struggles, and he's got those 2 wins, one with Envision and one with Jaguar in Saudi Arabia. So it's one of his better circuits, certainly. Although there are other. I remember with Envision in, I think season 6, he won one day and then crashed out the next, and a sort of silly incident at the sort of bobsleigh section where they tried to go side by side in a place where you couldn't really go side by side. I forget who it was. In fact, I wouldn't have known because I wasn't watching that race, but he hit someone. I do not remember who. I was told hit him, but anyway, I think I wouldn't say it's a must-win scenario because I don't think the McLaren's quite the Nissan package. They have committed actually for the rest of Gen 3. They're going to stick with Nissan Power McLaren, which is very, very interesting. We heard that's news we heard coming out of that camp today. So I think Sam Bird is definitely needs a decent result in the points because he sort of had a bit of issue in qualifying where McLaren sent him out a little bit too late for his lap in the group stage. So he missed out on the duels when his pace was looking promising. And then in the race, I think the attack mode strategy didn't quite work for him because Jake Hughes was able to hold on to that 7th, whereas Sam started, I think, about 11th or 12th and then dropped down to 13th by the end of it when he was running in the points for a small portion of the race for a time. So I definitely think Jake Hughes is leading the way at McLaren, and Sam needs a good result, needs a good qualifying to rebuild his confidence after a few difficult years at Jaguar, where Mitch Evans kind of very much showed him the way in both the races and in qualifying. When you compare the number of podiums, Mitch Evans got a load of wins and podiums, and Sam got only a small handful. So he needs to redress the balance, I think, in terms of relative to his teammate. I don't think necessarily it's going to be the end of the world if Sam isn't on the podium at the end of the weekend.
Yeah, and the only kind of time you think last season that Bird was up near the front was at Hyderabad, and then it all went wrong early in the race where he clattered into Evans and retired. He does go well here at this track, as you mentioned, Josh, but as does his teammate. As Ed's mentioned, they had a little bit of a few problems there in Mexico, which, again, if you get it wrong in qualifying, as we've seen over the last couple of years with this qualifying format, you get it wrong, it's a struggle for teams, especially at places like Mexico where it is tricky to make moves and come through the field. And it was a flat out race in Mexico. There wasn't really much power, energy saving going on. So it's tricky, but Diriyah is a track that, as we've mentioned, that Sam goes well at. I feel like McLaren will be better than they were in Mexico. I'm not sure they're going to be right challenging at the front of the field, but certainly they'll be up there in that podium contention point scoring group. But it is strange to see Bird going this long without winning a race.
Yeah, very long, isn't it? Was his last win, I think, came here in Diriyah as well, in that Jaguar, in that race where Alex Lynn ended up on his, well, Halo.
Season 7, yes.
Yeah, that was a weird one, that one. And we never even got a footage of the crash. It was a CCTV crash that we saw, and it was red flagging the race. I remember me and Megan were in the commentary box thinking, well, what's happened here? We got no information that there was a car upside down completely in the exterior of the track almost. Joe Samiego has put a couple of comments in saying, my opinion, if he finishes behind Jake Hughes in points, winless and podium, no podiums, he's on the hot seat. Yeah, looks like it as well. And even last year, I broached the question to Mark Preston in the commentary in Mexico and said, does he need to take some time away from racing? He said, if he doesn't improve, then maybe do something else. So time will tell. Qualifying is very important at this circuit, as we've been discussing already in the broadcast, but to have 2 races, it's doubly so. Teams like Nissan, Mahindra, APT, and ERT currently have 0 points after the first race. So, Matt, starting with you, which team is most likely to score some points here in the Diriyah double?
Oh, I mean, the randomness could be key, and we could see anyone score points, but you'd certainly say it probably isn't going to be ERT because they had a real struggle in Mexico a couple of weeks ago. Mahindra, possibly. It'd be interesting to see how they get on. I would have to say they're probably the best bet of that group that you mentioned, but I don't think we're going to see, unless there's some safety car in the middle of a load of people taking attack mode or something strange that messes up the order, because we're not probably unlikely to get rain. Something to mess up the order. I don't think the general running of things from Mexico probably will continue here.
I think I might disagree slightly with Matt. I think Nissan in particular were very, very unlucky not to score any points in Mexico. They had Roland 11th, Fenestraz 12th by the end of it. And I think Fenestraz had left his attack mode later than anyone else, essentially, which is why he dropped from, I think, 9th down to just outside the points. And Oliver Rowan, I think, was compromised by being held up in qualifying, essentially. He didn't get qualifying right, or I forget exactly what happened in the group stage. But certainly Oliver Rowan is still adjusting to rejoining that team, essentially. It had been a while since he's driven for them, and there's been a few changes since he was away. But yeah, I remember in season 8, I think, with Mahindra, Oliver Rowan. The season 8 Mahindra was not a spectacular car, but Oliver Rowan set some amazing lap times in practice, and then went on to qualify badly and have a very, very messy race where he crashed it out, according to what Josh said in the commentary when I was listening to it while doing something else. Anyway, but yeah, so I think Nissan are definitely going to score. I think APT are a really interesting one because Nico Muller. And we've been noticing this recently. He was 6th in his group, so he just missed out on getting into the duels. Qualified, I think, just ahead of the 2 Andretti's, who, of course, beat them to the points in the race. And Muller, of course, got hit in the backside by Da Costa, so we never really got to see what he could have done in Mexico. So I think Nico Muller, who got some great high scores in some messy attrition races in Rome particularly stands out to mind, but also he's been able to scrape a few points elsewhere at the end of last season. He had a great qualifying in London as well, so in the duels, which is amazing for someone in with the APT car with its Mahindra powertrain, which is probably one of the slower ones out there. Probably only the ERT arguably is worse, and I certainly think ERT will have a better showing because obviously Sergio Camara didn't even get to start in Mexico because part of his car exploded, which is quite concerning. And Dan Ticktum, of course, was the car just never looked particularly well set up, and he was decided basically to do an energy save strategy and hope there would be a safety car. In the end, there wasn't one. So yeah, it was a bit of on a wing and a prayer there for that team. So I think Dan Ticktum would qualify quite well in Diriyah last year, if I remember correctly, and got, I think, into the duels for at least one of the 2 races. So, and did end up scoring a point, I think, in the second of the 2 races. So I think Dan Ticktum might have a better showing, although I think they're probably the least likely team of those 4 we mentioned to score points. I think Nissan and APT are going to be the ones to look out for. Mahindra, I feel they're still not quite there. I think APT has got 2 really, really good drivers in Di Grassi and Nico Muller, and they just seem to be a little bit more on top of things as an organization at the moment compared to Mahindra, which I think is still restructuring under Frederick Bertrand, who's only been there. This is only his 2nd year at the team in charge of it.
I'm so glad that Ed kept talking there, because I just received 2 FaceTime calls, one from a friend and one from my sister, because Megan's not here this weekend, and the little baby niece is awake and they want to show us. So yeah, thanks Ed for keep talking there, so it didn't interrupt, because I was going like, nope, go away. But yeah, so as we were saying, we are very much looking forward to this weekend Saudi Arabia E-Prix, but that's what I was about to say. We have to remember that we may enjoy the racing, but the overall aspect is that not many people, myself and I know Ed definitely included, saying that we shouldn't be racing here, because it was announced, of course, on Monday that Saudi Arabia's government-owned public investment fund, PIF, signed a multi-year partnership with Formula E, as well as Extreme E and the new E1 electric powerboat series. Now, the PIF already owns a 5% stake in Formula E, along with close to 50% of Extreme E. The LIV, the Live Golf Series, as well as owning boxing, tennis, and football clubs such as Premier League team Newcastle United. Now, the Gulf Kingdom has been accused of investing in sport and high-profile events in order to improve its international representation and deflect attention away from its human rights record. But the kingdom's crown prince, Mohammed bin Salman, said last September that he did not care about accusations of sports washing and would continue funding sport if it added to the country's gross domestic product. So overall, starting with you, Ed, because I know you are very passionate on this topic. You have said it many a time across JB Motorsports, across Grid Network, across the Formula E zone as well. Is this investment a positive or negative sign for Formula E's future? And what are your thoughts on Saudi Arabia's increasing involvement and funding in international motorsport?
Well, I specifically made a point of not talking about it in the FEZ show, mainly because I think John Lana feels people tune out when I talk about it. But it is important. I think it's important to talk about it. So, as you can guess, my views are not particularly positive. In fact, they lean very much in the negative side, because I think it's unquestionable that they're using it to sports wash human rights abuses, and I think I got to be careful about what I say here. But I think I have to admit, when I saw the announcement on Monday, and I saw Nikki Shields in particular, she posted a story of where she was, she dressed up nice and everything, and she was in front of a load of boards that said the PIF logo on them. And I think it's one thing to accept the money, and it's quite another to sort of celebrate it so brazenly. And I think Joe has a comment in chat about this as well. So don't forget, LIV Golf is merging with the PGA Tour, so it's not stopping. I don't recall if WWE, the wrestling company, of course, still has a deal with them. Yes, yeah, so obviously there's a complicated, but it's I think the reason that's in the script was just to make sure that it's sort of making it clear the broad portfolio that they're collecting up at the moment, and Formula E is very much a part of that. Yeah, but I think my overall feeling on it is I feel quite sad about it, to be honest, because I think it's a sign of the time. I think back to the Saudi Pro League, which is their sort of football thing, which is supposed to be poaching all these big football players from the Premier League and other series like it. And basically, whenever there's not a big name, the stands are basically, they got 100, 200 people tops watching. And I feel this is, and maybe this is in conjunction with the whole TNT story and the reaction to that, but it feels a little bit like that's the way it's going, that Formula E's taking the money, and it's dodgy blood money. Let's not make any bones about this. And they don't really care, maybe necessarily, that viewing figures are going to be down this year, because I almost certainly guarantee, in the UK at least, they're not going to be anywhere near as good as they were on Channel 4. Not that they were particularly high on Channel 4 to start with, which is the reason why maybe this mess exists. And I know other countries have had pay TV for a while now and are having to sort of find workarounds. So I think we've been quite lucky in a way up until now in the UK at least. But yeah, I think if you look at the human rights situation in the time that Formula E has been going to Saudi, I think in the 6 years that we've been going so far, it's not gotten better, it's gotten worse. The crackdowns have been more brutal. We've seen in 2022, I think 81 people were executed, 81 men were executed in a day without a fair trial. And that to me is horrific. And it's hard not to talk about getting emotional, because these are real human lives I'm talking about here. But yeah, and I've talked about NEOM and the sort of not just persecution, eradication, essentially, an eviction and murder in some cases of members of the Haratat tribe to build the Neom super city, I guess, which is where they're going to build this city, which they're hoping the line, the big city that's all plonked on top of one another in a big line. And it's also where they're hoping to move the race from Diriyah in the future, is what we've been hearing. There have been plans on motion on that for a while. But yeah, I feel Formula. It's interesting because Formula E bigged up this announcement for quite a while beforehand. At least some media figures did in Formula E, and this is going to really define the future of electric motorsport. And then the announcement came, and there's not been a lot of positivity. Most people don't care, and the ones that do are disgusted, and I think rightly so, because the PIF, what it stands for, Public Investment Fund, is it's a thinly veiled sovereign wealth fund, one of the biggest ones in the world, in fact. 77 billion, I think I was reading on Wikipedia or something like that. That was the last estimate of what's in there, and that might actually be underselling it too. And it feels really like the definition of just take the money and run. And I feel it's very sad that Formula's got to that phase, but perhaps it had to do this to survive. And I know Alejandro Gag, who has a stake in all three series as well, is very much behind this. And this is sort of part of a play between him to try and wrestle back control from Liberty Global as well. So there's that side of it as well. But I feel like it's an indication that Formula maybe there's been a bit of mission creep, and it's strayed a bit from the values it started with. And I think that's very sad. And there's been a lot of times I've honestly thought, pretty much since the deal was the 10-year exclusivity deal to race in Saudi started, I've been thinking to myself, is this really the sport for me anymore? And obviously I don't watch these races in Saudi. I don't hold any grudges against the people that do. I think that's great for you. But for me, especially after 2021, when we had the intercepted missile strike from the Houthis, that luckily, people mistook for the fireworks display. It didn't lead to any consequences, but I think that confirmed all the fears that I've had about watching, that I just don't think I could cope if it suddenly cut away and I was in, oh my God, everyone's dead, which is a genuine fear that I have about this event. So that's my thoughts on it. That, like I said, not particularly positive, but maybe this is what Formula E feels it has to do to survive. And I think it's a sad state of affairs, whichever way I look at it, really.
Not much more really to add to what Ed said already, and we know there's obviously high tension in that part of the world at the moment, with what's been going on in the Red Sea and whatnot. Obviously, we've got this weekend coming up, and then Formula One, an even bigger spotlight shone on the other side of the country at the beginning of March. So that's something to just be mindful of course. Just to pick up on Joe's comment about WWE, yes, they still have their crown jewel event in Riyadh, I believe it is, once a year, and are still part owners of the company. Just a complete offshoot, because Joe mentioned it. Just something to look out for in the television world. WWE's flagship show, as of next January, exclusive to Netflix. Just something to watch out for other streaming things going forward when we get to next year. Just watch out for that one. Will not be on television, exclusive to Netflix. But yeah, just I know Ed's obviously got huge views on this, and we kind of fall in line and support them. But cash is king. It's unfortunate. The World Cup will be going to Saudi Arabia in a few years' time. That is almost certainly confirmed, because no one else bidded against them, because they knew they wouldn't have the money to support a bid against the Saudis. They had the Italian Super Cup football, 2 semi-finals and a final somewhere in Saudi Arabia over the last couple of weeks, and the stands were empty. If you follow football or soccer, you would have, I'm sure, seen the Jordan Henderson news over the last couple of weeks, where he went there as a bit of a flag bearer for the Saudi Pro League, and he's lasted 6 months, and now he's gone to Amsterdam to play for Ajax for the rest of the season. So all manner of things going on, but unfortunately, as I said, cash is king, and there's going to be a lot of politics chatting on this show. We've had part one of it. We'll get to the other bit when we talk about the Spanish Grand Prix later on.
Yeah, let's make no mistake about it. We may broadcast about motorsporting news as well, but when we go to countries that have human rights records that are abysmal, of course, we are going to talk about it on a platform and we'll be as professional as we can when broadcasting these news as well, because it is horrific. And I'm with Ed. I don't like every time I have to commentate on the races. I do it because of the stuff that I'm contracted to do and both need to do as well in order to keep on doing what I do. I don't like, and I've always said it in the comments of the broadcast as well, that we race in Saudi Arabia. I mean, Formula One and Formula E have had the missile strikes over race weekends. In fact, during the practice one session, I believe, a couple of years ago, we were all thinking, what's going on here? The red flag came out, and then all of a sudden we were all looking at what's going on the side of the circuit. And then all of a sudden we found out there was a missile that hit the Aramco oil factory not 15 minutes away from the track. And it's a real danger, as Ed said, that we've had 2 missile strikes on Formula E, 1 on Formula One. Two of them have been intercepted. 1 hit the factory. And you just got to think, why do they put them in? And if you remember, we don't just say this to say this. The drivers themselves delayed practice too, because they were all having a meeting saying, well, we don't feel safe enough to race. It's a genuine concern, and not something that we bring out to moan or to say anything. It's a genuine concern racing in this part of the world, the danger. So that we just try and bring attention to it as well. Ed doesn't watch or commentate on any of the races. He won't be on our post-race wrap-up show as well. And I fully respect him for that as well. And personally, if I had a choice, I wouldn't do it. I'd much rather do the Daytona and the race that we're about to cover, World Rally Championship. Joe says SRX was rumoured to race there before they called off 2024 season as well. With that, though, we will ask Ed to pick a winner from the weekend. I know he doesn't have much experience with the track knowledge, but judging on what we commentated together in Mexico, Ed, you were the leader in pick a winner last year with Diriyah races. So do you want to take a crack at it?
Yeah, I think I got lucky in that I've picked Verline for one of them last year. But anyway, I didn't know such luck in Mexico this year because I'm pretty sure I went for Jake Dennis and he finished 9th. So, but anyway, I think I'm going to go with, and I do know a little bit about the Saudi circuit, having done a bit of esports commentary on a version of it. So obviously, not a certain. Well, I was able to compartmentalize that because obviously sim racing doesn't have the same sort of stakes, and you don't actually have to go to those locations to commentate on those races. For me, well, same what you do, Josh. Anyway, but yeah. Anyway, going back to the question. I think I'm going to go. Does it matter which order I predict? That it matters when I win.
Race 1 and race 2, I presume. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll go race 1. I think is going to be the more chaotic one, and I will go for John Verne in the DS Penske because I think he had a really underrated run in Mexico. I don't think DS are in a much stronger position. I think of their drivers, Gunfer did very, very well in Mexico, but I think John Verne is just is probably the more consistent one, the one that's going to deliver under pressure, as we saw in Hyderabad last year as well, where he held off Nick Cassidy brilliantly on what was an unknown circuit, of course, to everyone at the time. And in terms of the Sunday race, so it's race 2, I'll go with Jake Dennis again because he always goes really, really well at the Diriyah track. Got a podium there in season 8 and then narrowly missed out to Verline in both of the races last year as well. So I think I'm gonna bet against Verline, which is probably a brave and foolhardy prediction. Well, but not the silliest thing I've said today. So yeah.
Wow, hang on. I think you're fine. Right, Ed Hunter from Formula EZ, thank you very much for being on the show tonight, and I hope you have a great weekend watching Daytona and the World Rally Championship.
Well, I'm going to be doing some commentary of my own on the Esports Endurance Series at 6 Hours of Istanbul. I believe we're going to get Alex Goldschmidt, who I've also done an interview with. I think he's agreed to do it, mainly because I told him it was a paid gig. So that did give me a little extra incentive. So I'm really looking forward to that. Well, nowhere near as much cash as the PIS are going to be offering people. Yeah, so before people start calling me a hypocrite.
No, it's completely different. That's a job. Yeah. Okay.
And it also where the money's coming from, I think, is also important as well.
Yes,
I didn't have to destroy an indigenous tribe to get this money. But anyway.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. I'm just going to say something. Thanks, Ed.
Not a good outro. I'm sorry.
We'll see you soon, Ed. Take care.
Okay. See you, Josh.
Bye-bye. Now, sticking with racing and moving over from the sands of Diriyah to the gravel of Monte Carlo, because it's the World Rally Championship and it's the season opener in Monte Carlo. This year, the championship is wide open with no defending champion running the full schedule. Now, Matt, you've been looking forward to this. You've been putting it in the chat for ages. Do you agree that this championship is wide open?
Yeah, it is. Starts tomorrow. We've had the shakedown stage today, of which Oyt Tanak was fastest for Hyundai. But it gets underway in the Alps above Monaco. It is the Monte Carlo Rally, as it always has been, but it's not actually based in Monaco. And actually goes nowhere near Monaco this year. It's based in Gap, and the stages are a little bit further north away from the coast, which means we've got a good chance of some better, depending on how you would look at it, weather for the weekend, and we should see some snow and ice throughout the weekend, which always brings some drama, especially with those dark stages that we've got coming up tomorrow. It is open for the season because we've got, as we've documented on this show already, and we talked about on our predictions show a few weeks ago, Kalle Rovanperä, the double champion and defending champion, not coming back to defend his title on a full-time basis. He and Sebastian Ogier are going to be sharing the Toyota duties in the third car, which presumably means that Elfyn Evans is going to be the Toyota team leader for the season, but he's going to have tough competition with Oyt Tanak and Thierry Neuville in the two Hyundais nipping at his heels. Comment from Joe says, I think Evans is the favourite, but he needs to be near perfect if Tanak and Neuville are consistently up front. It's going to be between those three all year. The caveat will be, thank you, Adam, absolutely, go Ravens on Sunday against the Chiefs. Everybody wants the Ravens to win. Otherwise, it's going to be a Swifty bowl. What was I saying? Yes, Ogier and Neuville sharing that car. So they're going to come in and do well, but then they're going to disappear again. And it's going to be an odd season where we're going to have that throughout the year while the championship battle is going on between Evans in the Toyota and the two Hyundais of Oyt Tanak and Thierry Neuville. The third Hyundai car is being shared throughout the season between three drivers, Andreas Mikkelsen, Esa-Pekka Leppi and Danny Sordo, and Takamoto Katsuta is in the second full-time Toyota Yaris. Two Fords from Adrian Former and Gregoire Monster in the M Sport Fiestas. But it all gets underway tomorrow night in the darkness on the infamous Sisteron stage, which is going to be great TV viewing. If you can get near a screen, then make sure you've got WRC in front of you tomorrow evening for us here in Europe and afternoon in the US.
Absolutely, and as you say, an early favourite for the Rally Monte Carlo is Sebastian Ogier. Now, of course, as we were talking about it just now, did most recently win the title back in 2021, and he claimed the Grid Ranking World Championship in the same year as well. Now, last year, he won 3 of 8 races he entered. This year, the 2023 WRC champion, Kalle Rovanperä, is only running part-time. So you mentioned about the two Toyotas as well going on there. Which part-time Toyota Gazoo Racing WRT driver do you think will have the most wins this season, Rovanperä or Ogier?
I think you have to look at Ogier's performances last year. Okay, he was unlucky at times. He had a puncture and went off the road in Greece, I think it was, somewhere, and where he was up front and then ended up crashing because he had a flat tire and fell off the side of the road. But one thing to look out for this weekend, it is Ogier this weekend at Monte. Rovanperä starts his season in 4 or 5 weeks' time in Sweden for round 2. Ogier going for his 10th win on the Monte this weekend. He grew up in Gap. The service park is in Gap. It couldn't be any more than a home rally for him this weekend. He literally knows the roads like the back of his hand in all conditions, snow, ice, sunshine and dry. So Ogier had to be the favourite for this weekend, you would assume, but he's then going to take some points away from those other full-timers. Something also quickly to mention also this year in WRC, where they've changed the point system. So at the end of Saturday, we'll have a leaderboard, of course, and then on Sunday, we'll have the overall, and then a Sunday leaderboard, where if you do well on the Sunday, you can score points or more points to your overall finishing position. So it's a bit like these sprint races in MotoGP and F1, where we've got extra points being handed out for a kind of separate separate leaderboard basically. So there are all kinds of points championships going on Sunday at Monte. The overall standings, the Sunday standings, and then the power stage standings as well. So it's going to be a lot to keep up with across the season. And those championship point extra bonus points being handed out on Sunday may well decide where the championship's going, especially if people like Rovanperä and Ogier are battling up near the front and taking points off the two front-running Hyundais of Thierry. Back to the original question, I think Rovanperä probably is going to win more over the season than Ogier. But something else what we'll get to throughout the season, road order position will be key for these guys because it runs in championship order. And if you're a bit further back in the championship and not interested in winning the championship like these two guys aren't this year, they're only out there for rally wins. It could be interesting to see how that plays through.
Yeah, you mentioned about Hyundai as well. They've both got Oltanek and Thierry Neuville on the same team. Hyundai clearly wants to end Toyota's championship winning streak. While it would be good for the Hyundai team to win the title as a manufacturer, both of their drivers really want to be the one to win the Drivers' Championship themselves. Now, is this Hyundai's best opportunity to win the title, or is Toyota still the favourite, as you say, with Elfyn Evans leading the way?
Well, Tanak is a world champion, of course, won it for Toyota in 2019 and ever since has wanted another one. It just hasn't come to pass. Of course, this is be his second spell at Hyundai after being there in 2020. Neuville, the forever bridesmaid of WRC, has been so close on a number of occasions, but he's always had Sébastien Ogier beating him to the championship most of those years where he's come second. So those two are going to have to get along. You feel there's going to be some fireworks between them at some point throughout the season. It's not like, of course, WRC, not like the traditional circuit racing where the guys are on the track or stage in this case at the same time, but there's going to be surely something will go on throughout the season between them two. It's going to be up to team boss Cyril Abiteboul to keep them both in line and hope that they play fair with each other, and the focus will be on beating Evans over the season, and then obviously Ogier and Rovanperä over their selected rallies throughout the season. It'll be really interesting to see how it plays out.
Similar people keeping drivers in line. You're talking mad there, Matt. Yeah, you're talking mad, man. That's nothing. He's not going to get in control. I just want to say at the end of this as well, best wishes to Ben Constanduras, who is not doing well at the moment as well. He's not commentating this weekend with the World Rally Championship, and Anthony's also got a back problem as well. So I really hope he recovers well. A brilliant broadcaster and a great friend as well to us all. On to our second story of the evening then. I know it feels like we've covered two, but it was sort of crammed in because of everything that's going on this weekend. This one is quite interesting because once again, AlphaTauri is undergoing another name change. They'll be known as the Visa Cash App RB Formula One team. Try saying that when you're drunk. This begins a new multi-year partnership where Visa will become the first global partner of both Red Bull F1 teams. The Visa logo will appear on all four cars from Oracle Red Bull Racing and Visa Cash App RB and their F1 Academy entries. This is the third name change the team has gone through in recent years, from Toro Rosso to AlphaTauri and now Visa Cash App RB. What a downgrade. They are the only team that went through a major name change. Alfa Romeo is now known as Stake F1 team Kick Sauber. That's even worse. The graphic courtesy there of Visa Cash App RB. So, once again, Visa returns to Formula One. The first time they've been a title sponsor since 1997. And that created a whole lot of trouble from their two races there. Also known as Super Bowl Racing, says Alex as well. Matt, do you like the new team name, or is it harder for the team to establish an identity for themselves when they're constantly changing names? What do you think, Matthew?
Yeah, it is. Let's hope they do better than the last Visa-sponsored cars that didn't get through qualifying at Melbourne in '97, and then that was the end of them. It's just an absolute tongue twister, isn't it? I mean, one thing that came to mind a couple of weeks ago when the Stake news came out about Sauber, because it's Sauber, is Everton Football Club is sponsored by Stake. It's on the shirts, but we still call them Everton. So why can't we just call them Sauber?
I'm with you.
Visa Red Bull, Cash App Red Bull Racing Alpha Tauri Rosso. I don't know what you are going to do throughout the season, Josh.
I don't know. I can't.
On your calls. I don't know what Crofty's going to do. I don't know what Alex Jakes is going to do. All the commentators around the world. What are we going to just call them? Oh, when we get a flash of, oh, that's a in the gravel at turn 3. You know,
right. I've had a thought because I don't know. From my point of view, I can't say it because that would be a brand endorsement, a direct brand endorsement, and that goes against YouTube and Twitch guidelines. The commentators can't do it either because it goes against the BBC guidelines and it also goes against the Sky guidelines. So I think maybe Alex Jakes can get away with it, but I've come up with a few alternatives.
Yeah.
So, bit like we had British American Racing called BAR, we got Visa Racing Bulls. Can we call them VRB?
VRB. It's Sonoda in the VRB. He's off at turn 5.
Yeah, I like it.
Well, yeah, I think that's. I mean, we've only had 9 or 10 hours since this news was official, even though kind of got out a little bit last week. Yeah. Don't change your social media handles until you've got something to announce, silly people. But yeah, this is, we've been talking about this for a little while. It's been was going through the sort of back half of last season, wasn't it? Because they were going to change the name again. The clothing brand clearly has not took off in any shape or form from what they envisaged that it would do. It's going to be a mouthful. And Zach Brown's had his say again the last couple of days about Red Bull tying up with the team and them being a bit more aligned again and all this kind of thing. Kind of got bored of that story a few years ago, and now it seems to be back. Adam dislikes it. I think everybody, Adam, is of the same opinion. It is weird, but I think Josh has got it spot on there with VRB, and also it's just got to be Sauber, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's got to be Sauber.
Go cars.
It'll be Sauber, and it's better than Sauber, but it's still horrible. Yeah, because the Sauber is on it. Stake F1 team kick Sauber. Minardi, not Minardi. And then I said about Tyrrell, you joked about, well, I can't wait to see if Jordan improved this year. Alonso's got to do well. V-carb. Yeah, I've seen that go around for Korean Chanhawk, V-carb. But the problem is, I don't think they're allowed to say that either because carbohydrates, it's promoting other things as well. So Adam says VRB, I'll take it. It's got to be VRB. We had BAR. You couldn't say British American Racing, so it was BAR. And I quite like VRB. Behind the mic, Matthew Owen says, can we add a presented by, oh God, what's that?
Intuit TurboTax.
TurboTax, oh my God. That's the NASCAR names. We are getting a bit ridiculous, aren't we, as well? I'm just waiting for the, it's lights out for the British Grand Prix, something like that. The really, really poor ones, like we had for NASCAR, the name changes. It's getting ridiculous. I mean, I mentioned this a few days ago as well. We recorded a podcast and I said, are we losing the identity of Formula One? Is that what we're doing? Because we don't have the names that have the heritage. And people say, oh, why do we want Andretti coming into Formula One? Andretti is more famous in motorsport than Visa or Cash App or Kick or Stake. God,
more on identity of Formula One to come in our next story, I feel.
Yes, I know. We're going to have to talk about this now because otherwise we're going to get too wrapped up. It's pretty much the identity that is a crisis. Good morning, Dimas, as well from your show. Good night from Indonesia. Good morning to you. Hope you're okay, my friend, as well. Right, we'll move on from the AlphaTauri to another Formula One story that is just as irritating the fans of motorsport, because starting in 2026, the city of Madrid, Spain, is rejoining the Formula One calendar as the host of the Grand Prix. This new Madrid F1 track will be based around the IFE MA Madrid Exhibition Centre in the Barajas district, which is close to the Alfonso Suarez Airport and only 16 kilometres away from the city centre. Madrid is expected to build a 20-turn, 5.474 kilometre track that is set to use public roads and private land, with some sections of the track expected to feel more like a street circuit and more others like a permanent circuit. Think what we've seen in Miami and Las Vegas. Now, this means the future of Barcelona is up in the air, with its place on the F1 calendar looking uncertain. F1 has received a lot of criticism from abandoning classic tracks with tons of history for the city streets, the graphic courtesy there of Formula One. Well, Matt, quick question to you on this one. Are you afraid that F1 is abandoning the traditional tracks, and will it backfire on them?
Well, all these street tracks coming in over the last 5 years, 4 years, not even. Maybe Formula E had it right all along. Now Formula E are going away from all these street tracks and going to places like Misano and Portland and Shanghai. And Formula One are jumping on the street track bandwagon. Back in the day when we had, Monaco, obviously, and Singapore, would you call Albert Park and Montreal street tracks? I guess they're parkland circuits, aren't they?
I was thinking the same thing. What do you call them?
They're not really street tracks, especially Montreal. But I don't know. Are we getting away, bringing it to the people? Some might say, but getting away from the traditional tracks. I mean, Barcelona's been on the calendar since '91. So, of course, with the infamous Senna and Mansell side by side in turn one. Indeed. So, I mean, we had, I'm just trying to think back to the end of the noughties before the GFC. There was a big boom in Spain, helped, I guess, by Fernando Alonso's double world championship in the middle, where we had Aragon pop up, Circuit Navarra, which has just been bought by Motorsport Vision, and the British Superbike Championship will be having their opening round in Spain this season instead of going to Silverstone. And a couple of other tracks that have just popped up in Spain, and then it's deflated a little bit, and now we've got it coming back with Madrid. I was a fan of Valencia, I have to say. Did think it was a good circuit. Shame it fell by the wayside. Hopefully this doesn't go the same way. One thing I was instantly interested in when I saw the track map, if Cody can flick that back up on screen, was where is the pit lane and the start-finish lane?
That's what I was thinking.
I would guess that straight on the left-hand side of the image would be the start-finish straight.
Yeah.
It isn't flat out DRS zone. So where is it? The good thing, I guess, they will use that park area on the right-hand side to have the fan park and all that kind of thing, a bit like, as you mentioned, Josh, Miami, where they've got like the inbound lake with all the silly boats parked in it and the Hard Rock Cafe area, that kind of thing. It'll be a similar around there, I guess. But it'd be disappointing to lose Barcelona from the calendar, although that may or may not happen.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because this is actually somewhere where I can actually have a bit of insider gossip that I'm allowed to say this year, because when I was there in testing in 2019, I spent a lot of time with the locals there, and I was talking to them both in English and in Spanish as well. They're fantastic people, very, very kind and very, very helpful. And I was talking to them, it's like, they all love that Formula One is there, but they hate the fact that it's called the Spanish Grand Prix. Catalonia wants independence from Spain, and that is why you see at the Grand Prix that there are two national anthems, the national anthem of Spain and the national anthem of Catalonia. And the Catalans do want independence. And from what I'm hearing, very similar to what we have with MotoGP, where they run the Catalan Grand Prix, it looks like Barcelona, the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya, will become the Catalan Grand Prix, which for me, I'm more than happy about, because ever since I went there in 2019 and I spoke to the locals, a bit like how Ed's very passionate with the Saudi Arabia, I'm very passionate about the fact that they love Formula One there. They hate it's called the Spanish Grand Prix. And I can completely agree with them on that, because if you go around that area, it's an industrial site, so it's very much a working class area, and it feels so friendly and so passionate and vibrant. It's a great area for a race. And then you go into the city centre as well, down, of course, just a few minutes away. And they are very passionate in that area about it all. They're very passionate. And if you go down Les Ramblers as well, every 100 or so meters, you get the Catalan flags and people passing them out, and little yellow bands as well for independence. It's fantastic. I've actually brought one of those back for my friend Sophie. And they are fantastic. And to have the possibility of them having the Catalan Grand Prix, I'm 100% for it. And I did feel when I read that from Stefano Domenicali, who said we might not lose the track, I thought, oh, he's going Catalan then. And for what I'm hearing, the negotiations are in for a Catalan Grand Prix. So
yeah,
brilliant.
I don't disagree. I mean, we've got 4 Spanish races for MotoGP. Yeah. Of course, the Spanish Grand Prix at Jerez, the Catalan Grand Prix at Barcelona, then we've got Aragon, which has been on and off the calendar, and the Community of Valencia Grand Prix. Then there's the whole Basque thing in northern Spain is another separate part that they want to break away and become independent as well. So it would be good to have it on the like when we had during the COVID times, we had double Grand Prix at places where there were two different names. This is sort of similar. Two races in the same country at different tracks. So I know a lot of people do bag on Catalonia for the fact that the racing there has not been brilliant over the last however long. But we've had some, surprises there. Of course, the two Mercedes is running into each other. Pastor Maldonado getting a win in the Williams 11 years ago. Can you believe? More than that now. Be 12 years this year. Incredible.
Wow.
And all other things that have happened at that racetrack. So it would be a real shame again to lose. It was talked about Spa a couple of years ago. That might be going away now. It's held on for the moment. These classic proper racetracks making way for downtown street circuits.
Yeah, when did we point out that Spa was a street track until 2007? Just saying. Technically it was. It was one of those weird hybrids, wasn't it? Where, because from Curve de Porfrere, Blanchimont, the bus stop, La Source, Eau Rouge, all the way down
up to Les Combes.
Yeah, that was streets. It was a street track. And then they built the infield section. It's so bizarre thinking about it. But yeah, everyone going, oh, we can't lose Spa. It was a street track. But yeah, they've modified it since. Now it's completely closed off, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, thought so. As Adam says, F1 used to run a street circuit in Phoenix, Arizona for the Grand Prix 1990, 1991, and they completely changed the layout each year because of problems. But yeah, we had Phoenix. We're losing tradition and flavour everywhere. IndyCar has ignored Pocono for years now. I agree, I love Pocono. At least Milwaukee is back. Yeah, the Milwaukee Mile getting a double. NASCAR has been doing this for 20 to 25 years. At least they bought North Carolina and Wilkesboro. Is it North Wilkesboro?
Wilkesboro, yeah.
No, Wilkesboro. I don't know why I got North Carolina in my head for some reason. Jackson, who's Ella Jackson, says a lot of people suddenly adoring Barcelona. Do you think we should be afraid of old school tracks being put on the chopping block for street circuits? Yeah, definitely. Especially as I'm also hearing rumours more and more that they want another street circuit in Europe, but we're like I think I heard a Berlin street track was trying to be worked out, which is great to have a race in Germany, don't get me wrong, but why not Hockenheim or Nürburgring? It's weird.
Yeah, we do definitely need to go back to Germany in some shape or form.
This is the big one, though, and this is the one that Jackson's hit the nail on the head. Osaka have launched a bid for the Japanese Grand Prix, and Suzuka, their contract is up at the end of this year, and they've just had a date change move, which is more favourable to that of Osaka. So it's a bit on the nose. Yeah. So it's a bit on the nose here, whether or not that's going to happen or not. But I think if Suzuka went off the calendar, the drivers would properly riot. We went to Fuji for 2 years.
Then they weren't happy about that, were they? Back in
they were not.
To Fuji.
They were not. And in fact, Alonso said that despite he won it in 2008, he said he'd never race there again. And then he did it in WEC, which was odd to me. But yeah, because he crashed, didn't he, in 2007, and it really hurt him. He said it was one of his worst crashes of his career. Up to that point, Alex said it would help if F1 cars were actually able to engage in battles instead of them being massively spread out. That is true. All I will say on this is that everyone, Alex, you say that, but one of the best races of the year has been Vegas. Yeah, exactly what I was about to say.
And
Singapore. Yeah, the two best races last year were street tracks, but Singapore was strategy based, and Red Bull had an off day. Las Vegas was good because it had a tight first sector that brought everybody together, and then it opened up in the second and third, and that gave us the long straight with the DRS. That's why it was a good race. So there was a bit interesting there as to whether or not we had a great race. I still think Silverstone was a bit like that this year on my front, but COTA was good. Really enjoyed COTA and Sao Paulo and Mexico. So there were some good races in the last year. Alex says yes, but I feel as though there were good battling, even if it was relatively spread out. It may have been a large gap, but Checo and Charles were going at it, and Charles had a hard fight with Max. That's true. Max did have a penalty that was able to serve and keep. The hard part of street circuits is dealing with city politics. Just look at NASCAR and Chicago as well. And I suppose as well, Joe, working in the public office, would know a lot about what it takes to do motorsport as well. So
just generally
Yeah,
Yeah.
I trust him on that 100%. In fact, I wish Joe was able to come on the show tonight. He'll be able to tell us more about that. We'll have to drag him on next week and have a quick word about it, because this is going to be a developing story, especially if Osaka is getting involved. Probably won't hear anything about that until after Suzuka early April on the 4th. So, yeah, there's a lot to talk about. Formula One, even though it's in the off-season, is just dragging controversy around left, right, and centre. We are going to keep across all of this because it's going to be hot topics throughout. But it's time to hand over to Kobe for some more news, and we'll welcome him back in, who has been brilliant behind the scenes. Over to you, Kobe.
Thanks, Josh. Next time for some more motorsports news from around the world. The NASCAR Xfinity Series Dash for Cash and Craftsman Truck Series Triple Truck Challenge programs are returning this year. In the Xfinity Series, the Dash for Cash program gives 4 Xfinity regulars a chance to collect a $100,000 incentive at each race. The Richmond Spring Race will be the qualifier to kick off this year's Dash for Cash opener at Martinsville, Texas, Talladega, and Dover. The other Dash for Cash races, Xfinity Series Director Wayne Auden said that Cup drivers won't be allowed to compete in any Dash for Cash events or in the final 8 races of the year. However, Cup drivers will be allowed to participate in the race at the Chicago Street Course and Iowa. Meanwhile, the Triple Truck Challenge will see Charlotte, Gateway, and Nashville make up the trip. Eligible Truck Series regulars will receive a $50,000 bonus for one win. If a driver wins 2 out of 3 races, that's a $150,000 bonus. See, I'm not really that great at math, so I keep tripping over myself, just like the trip. However, if a driver wins all 3 races, the bonus will increase to $500,000, $500,000. So that's a lot of money there riding on the line in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series this year. Now, our next NASCAR story, Front Row Motorsports is planning to enter a 3rd car in next month's Daytona 500 for Kaz Grala. Grala will attempt to beat the Great American Race, driving number 36 Ford Mustang Dark Horse, a sponsorship from Root Bush Development Construction. He said this feels like one of his best chances at the Daytona 500 with everyone involved, mentioning the Ford engine from Roush Yates Engines. It was previously announced that Grala would drive 25 races in the number 15 Ford Mustang for Rick Ware Racing, graphic courtesy of Front Row Motorsports. Marco Andretti will be expanding his stock car racing schedule this year, competing in the ARCA Menard Series and NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series part-time. He'll drive the number 17 Chevrolet for Cook Racing Technologies and select ARCA races at Daytona, Phoenix, Dover, Kansas, Portland, Sonoma, Iowa, Mid-Ohio, IRP, Milwaukee, Watkins Glen, Bristol, and the Kansas Fall Race to make up a 13-race schedule. Additionally, Andretti will compete in 7 Truck Series races for Roper Racing after Cook Racing Technologies formed an alliance with the team. We'll see Andretti behind the wheel of the number 04 Chevrolet Silverado at COTA, IRP, Milwaukee, Bristol, Kansas, Homestead, and Phoenix. Andretti said his 2024 schedule will answer a lot of his unknowns in stock car racing and wanted to do this the right way instead of going directly into the Cup Series. He'll also be back in the number 98 Andretti Global Honda at this year's Indianapolis 500. Graphic you see on the screen, courtesy of Andretti. Now I'm going to turn over to Matt for everyone's favorite game, Pick a Winner.
Before we do pick a winner quickly, because we're running short on time, the Grid EPI started off last weekend for 2024. We had the first race of the year, the Abu Dhabi 6 Hours, won by the car collection motorsport team of Dennis Marshall, Dustin Blattner, and Loic Hartog. Of course, this weekend, 2 big 24-hour races to make up the beginning of the Endurance Performance Index of 2024, the Rolex 24 at Daytona and Dubai. Time for pick a winner for this weekend. And as we've been talking about, Formula E double at Diriyah, WRC in Monte, and the Rolex 24. Picks from the team will be coming up on that Saturday pre-show. Make sure you set your watches and your reminders to get tuned in on Saturday before the big race gets underway. We'll start our pick a winners for this evening with Formula E in Diriyah. I'm going to go with one name for both races, and I'm going to take my chances on one. And I am going to go with the man that won both races there last year and the one a couple of weeks ago that got Ben and Matthew to the top of the standings. I'm going to stick with Pascal Wehrlein.
And for me, I'm going to go with Pascal Wehrlein for race 1. And race 2, give me Jake Dennis. Josh, who you got?
Pascal Wehrlein definitely for race number 1, but for race 2, I'm going a bit bolder. I'm going to go with Sebastian Buemi. I think he'll learn a lot from the first race and he'll improve on second, especially if Mexico is anything to go by.
Our second pick a winner to do tonight on the show is the Monte, which starts tomorrow evening France time. tomorrow afternoon American time. Going for win number 10, the home man. You've got to go. There surely is no other pick than Sebastian Ogier.
Yeah, when in doubt, go Ogier. So I think Sebastian Ogier is going to get the job done in Monte Carlo.
3 for 3, definitely Sebastian Ogier as well. Literally, as Matt said earlier on in the show, it's his hometown, his home streets. Definitely, I know I'd be quicker around Grimsby. So yeah, I'm going with that.
You can get your picks in on the social media. The post is up on the various platforms to get your picks in for those races and the Rolex 24 at Daytona at the weekend. I'm going to throw my what this really means is Palou gets in Newcastle Barcelona. Yes, I saw a couple of people making that plea on the social media throughout the week. Jackson's going with Cassidy and Dennis for Diriyah. And we don't have time for hots and knots tonight. I would have to. Callie's not doing Monte Jackson. That's why his season starts at Sweden with his part-time schedule, as we talked about earlier on in the show. So I have a quick plea. We talked about Formula One losing its identity and whatnot else, and I've got a quick plea. Please, McLaren, you've announced your livery for the season. Please use it. Please use your livery that you have already announced for the year. Don't get 3 races in and go, ta-da! We've got another one. Because we had all that fighting about helmets a few years ago. And all the drivers were slapped down and having to use the same helmet throughout the season. This isn't NASCAR or IndyCar. Here's the livery. Crack on. There's my, not a hot or not, but a plea for the season. Please, Zach Brown, if you're listening, use the same livery.
It's Zach Brown. He won't listen to us as well. He's too busy trying. He's too busy going around. Yeah, with a net. I mean, he's having to get in the car himself now. This is how bad it's getting. He's quite good there. Okay, so just a reminder to you all, on Saturday, January the 27th, we'll have our annual Rolex 24 at Daytona pre-race show. That's at noon Eastern and 9 a.m. Pacific time as well. The link to that is in the video description. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel now, so you don't miss any of our biggest shows of the year. Thank you for helping us reach the milestone of 820 subscribers. Now, please do help us reach our new goal of 900 subscribers on the road to 1,000. You can hit the bell icon to get notifications when we go on air, and follow all our social media platforms, and visit gridranking.com. You can take 5 minutes to invest in the Grid Network through Patreon. Join Colin, Mark, Michelle, Robin, David, and Matthew and invest each month in the Grid Network. And we encourage you to join these fine folk who keep us on the air. And once we hit $500 per month, we can start sending our team to the track to cover more races and continue expanding our coverage. The link to all of that is in the video description. And if you want to do a one-time donation, you click on the Buy Me a Coffee link, get your name on the board, and invest as much as you want. And consider buying a specific on-air personality a cup of coffee, and they will thank you on the air. You can also support us by donating during our live streams through the Super Chat, as well function in the YouTube chats. Now, for Kobe Lambeth, Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance Index, Ed Hunter from Formula E-Zone, I'm Joshua Birch. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Don't forget for the pre-show on Saturday. Bye-bye.